Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Incomplete Skeptic, another episode, and this time we're with Rodney Norman. He is a clean comedian. Woohoo! That's
Yes,
him right there. The
that's
guy
me.
with the cool looking beard versus a little scrubby thing here.
It's
Right on,
about
bro.
commitment. It's all about commitment, my friend.
Right on. The first time I saw Rodney's video, I saw it on Facebook and I thought it was a chronic inebriant who somebody captured on a video, and he was trying to share some realistic wisdom for us. And I was waiting for it, and I was waiting for it, and I was waiting for it. And having worked with late stage chronic inebriants before, I thought for sure this was real. This is how convincing this guy's act was. And at the very end, and in conclusion, you'll have to see the video. I'll put a link on this afterwards. It's just absolutely hilarious. And then when I did a little research on it, I thought, oh my God, this guy is an actual comedian and this is a shtick. And he does it so well. And the more I looked into his routine, the more I saw a guy who I thought, the way I view the world, this guy is making the world a better place to live in. And I saw a potential, if people would just receive it, of his style of comedy undermining the demotivational stuff that we have going on in our daily lives these days. And we're usually looking at people who are motivational, but if you can't demotivate the demotivation, which is what I think your comedy does, then we're not going to get very far. So congratulations on coming up with a way that short circuits a lot of the obstacles and defenses that we have. And I see it as a complete positive. And so welcome to the Incomplete Skeptic, Rodney. I'm so
Well,
glad you're here.
it's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, that's kind of my message is that, everybody's telling you all kinds of weird, strange messages. And when it comes right down to it, you already are a wonderful person. You already have a lot of wonderful things in your life. You aren't missing anything. You just got to learn to appreciate what you have. And amazingly, when you start to do that and you show gratitude and appreciate what you have, you enjoy what you have, and then you find yourself getting more stuff, getting more abundance, and it's just about opening up yourself and accepting it. And that's the message that I just love to convey to people, is that you already are wonderful. You aren't incomplete. You're a wonderful human being, and you can do amazing things because you already have.
Right.
You don't need an excuse. You don't need things to be perfect. You just need to just start doing what you want to do and enjoy your life.
Yeah, it's like be ye perfect as our comedian in heaven is perfect.
Yes.
If I want to make God laugh, it is still in my plans. So yeah. So what was the first thing do you think triggered you in this direction? I mean, I've read some of your backstory, but I want you to tell us what got you started in this road.
This one in particular is, I've had this character. It's based loosely on my grandfather, who was a kind of a lush drunk, and he would be, rather inebriated, and would try to teach me and my cousin all these life lessons, most of which were kind of just, ramblings of an old drunk man. But he would always have something important to say at some point in time, and it was always, amazing. And so I'd done him as a character before, and then one day I'm sitting and I'm watching a friend of mine who's one of these life coaches, and he posted a video. I think it was on Instagram, and he was telling people, "Hey, you don't need an excuse to be successful. You're already successful. You just got to go out and embrace it." It was one of those things. And I thought, he's saying something wonderful. He's saying something positive. But for some reason, we just turn it out. It's like, oh, one of these guys, you know? And so that's when I made the connection. I'm going to make my grandfather, my half drunk grandfather, become the world's worst motivational speaker. And that is where it all started. And so I started making videos, I called them demotivational videos. It's basically everybody else, all these other people are telling you how to be a better self. My message is you already are wonderful. Quit beating yourself up. And,
right on. Took me many years to get that message through my head, is that we are already enough. Yeah. So you're channeling your grandpa.
Yes,
In a manner of
my
speaking.
drunk, hard living, lived himself into an early grave grandfather. Absolutely. But in spite of his faults, he loved that man. Just
Underneath it all, you could see and feel his heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we went there with more people and we look for the good, we'll find it in people. And sometimes they need a tap on the shoulder and a reminder. And sometimes music does it. Sometimes comedy does it. Sometimes a speech will do it. However we get there. But in the central vision of your life, maybe as a comedian as well, which I think is a big part of, well, I'm going to call it your ministry. Someone called my speaking for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I did that for like 28 years. They called it my mad ministry. And I thought, that kind of makes sense. Using some difficulties and trying to transcend and you have to go deeper than the things that you've done to kind of start over again. It's like forgiveness runs deeper than the offense that calls it into place. Mm-hmm. And if there's no offense, there's no forgiveness. So while the offense might be wrong, what are you going to do with it? And so running into life headlong with forgiveness and love. But what would you put, I know this should probably maybe be at the end of my questioning, but what would you put on your tombstone as your life message? Have you thought about that much?
Probably just, I had a great time.
You reminded me of with You're Already Good Enough. I think what I try to do with my life is remind people that they are good enough as well. And I thought of putting on my tombstone, this is why I asked it, is because you kind of unlocked that direction with my question. But that I would hope that I help people fall in love with the entirety of who they are,
Wow. Yeah, that's a great message.
Right. And it's like love covers a multitude of mistakes, just like comedy, just like good music, just like, and never take yourself too seriously. And so that's why I asked. Have you ever had a face-to-face with somebody that was, let's say, in the last few years, a homeless inebriant? And because, I've been working on a book for homeless wisdom, where I'm asking people what wisdom they have before I give them a buck or two, and there's so much wisdom out there, and I think people overlook it or can't see it for whatever reason. They never think to ask or they're afraid. But have you ever aligned with somebody as Norman, the comedian, yet with your shtick? Because you can walk up to them and maybe trick them, But if you ever pulled any wisdom out of people like that, you know what I'm saying? I'm over questioning and over analyzing my question. That's one of my shortcomings. But take what you will with that and answer it however you want.
I have had many conversations with homeless people. I've helped as much as I've been able to. I try to help where I can. I may not be able to solve all the problems, but I can at least make life a little lot easier for somebody at times. In fact, I started a thing years ago where I keep candy bars and cold drinks in my car all the time anyway, because I'm traveling all the time. But I know I shouldn't be eating the candy bars. So I just started giving them away to homeless people. You know, when you see somebody, standing on the side of the road saying anything helps. Well, usually I hand them a cold bottle of Coke and a candy bar. I figure they get handed a lot of bottles of water, which is helpful and everything. But I figure if I can just give them a nice little treat, it might brighten their day a little bit. I can't solve all their problems, but I can give them a tasty snack. And when I get a chance, I try to talk to them, find out what their story is. Find out why they're where they're at. And I find them fascinating. A lot of them are, mental issues, a lot of drug issues. But, kind of the most common one that I've found is just that people they just get to a point where their whole life just falls apart. And they just realize that everything they'd been working for was gone. And so they went to find something else, and they found happiness being a homeless person, because they have no concerns, they have no worries. They just go and do whatever they want, wherever they want. Kind of a liberating way to live. And I think in talking to a lot of them, they find happiness where they're at. And I think that's the amazing thing about the human spirit, is that we do. I mean, if you watch videos of these kids in third world countries that are dancing and just goofing off and having fun, and here they're in the poorest conditions that we haven't seen in this country in decades, and they're happier than any of our kids. It's like there's a lot of joy to be found wherever you are. So
I had that same recognition, and those kids seem so happy, and I thought they were good role models for us. And then we make assumptions that because they're poor, they have certain needs that legitimately would do well to be met, but yet it's not an obstacle to happiness. And that is the greatest part of health, is choosing to be happy. And we can all have it, and someone said, be ye as little children, and be childlike, but not childish.
Yes.
I can be childish or childlike. I kind of flip back and forth occasionally, but the original self, the one that still exists within us, that nobody can screw up. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away. But it seems like we get distracted, and going back to ground zero with that easy simplicity, that happiness, that simple joy, and it's just like, if I can carry the image of those kids that I have in my mind, I can see like these 4 or 5 kids all gathered around. They're in Africa, and I'm pretty sure it was Africa, and they were Black, and there was just nothing about them that wasn't happy. There was no complaints in their eyes. There was no suffering, even though and we have all these things and we're suffering, but it's a choice, the suffering choice. And I'm not talking about just white people or anyone else. I'm talking about this country, I think we all fall prey to this to some degree. And I'm not an exceedingly political guy, so I'm not going political on this. It's just, I'm just a human being, and saying, let's simplify this whole thing, Can you think of maybe an occasion where you saw somebody was really in trouble, and your comedy or your gentle heart or whatever kind of raised them up? Maybe an example or two.
Well, one thing that sticks out in my mind is not just a few months ago, I had a gentleman reach out to me because his son had died from a drug overdose. And in the last few months before he died, he obviously had issues. His mother died 5 years ago, and he's had some issues with the father and him have both had some health issues, and then the son's gotten involved with drugs, and and just his life was spiraling out of control. And he was really starting to try to put his life back together in the last year. And one of the things that had helped him was my videos. Was that he watch the videos, and he would just, it pulled him out of his little funk, and he really kind of started taking on his own, this idea of being an emotional support human, of just getting out and helping people. Yeah.
So you're an emotional support comedian.
Yes. And so he had started going out and trying to really turn his life around and trying to help people. And obviously he still had a lot of issues, and it caught up to him. But his dad reached out to me and said, look, we're going to do a memorial service. Would you do a video for it? And I'll be honest, it kind of put me back a second. I was like, here I was just trying to make silly videos and get people to laugh and think a little bit. I didn't know that it would have that kind of an impact, that they would want me to do that. And then I would say that at least a couple of times a week, I have people sending me messages saying, hey, your videos are changing my life. They're getting out of this self-pity. They're getting out of this, because this last year, we've all had our issues that we've had to deal with, whether financially or mentally or socially, everything's just kind of been tossed up. And they're saying the videos are just getting them to, sit back and go, okay, life's not that bad. I actually got it pretty good. I can do this. I can move on. And that it's humbling every time I get one of those messages. It always just sets me back. I mean, I love it as a comedian. You want to hear, oh, you're so funny. And I get that. But when it's, you're so funny and you changed my life, it kind of throws you off a little bit, because it's like, oh, wow. I mean, it's humbling, and I couldn't be more grateful for how it's the people's outreach to me about the videos. It's been absolutely amazing experience.
I like that you actually do read your comments, and there's some of your videos that have quite a few, and I don't know how any single human being could keep up with reading so many, but I considered it like a necessity to interview you, and I was hoping that I was on the right track, because while I was trying to listen past the routine and the shtick, if you will, and it took a little bit of focus to do that. And I think that's a focus that so many of us, it's a skill that we don't always use, to be able to hear someone and to kind of hear past the way they're saying it into the message of what they're actually saying. And I think this would be a really great skill for people to learn how to truly listen, to actually watch your videos and listen in that way. And I love listening myself, and so I consider you kind of a master teacher for listening in this way. And I'm wondering now, the video you made for the memorial, I assume that was private, right? Or
yeah, I just sent it to the
one,
father, and he played at the memorial service. If he chooses to release it, he's welcome to. But
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you could consider making a generalized memorial to something or someone, and nothing specific, of course. Just a thought that crossed my mind. And because we all deal with grief. I have a good friend who lost her husband, and another woman who lost her husband, and one was more recent than the other. And I talked to the one last night, and she's reading a book, Widow to Widow, and the tears will turn on in a heartbeat, and she doesn't know when it's going to happen. And but maybe something about grief, how to deal with grief, because I know when I was going through the dark night of the soul is what I call it, And it was about a 3.5 year period, and it was a very difficult, the most difficult period of my life. I did, I'm in sobriety, so I don't drink, and I didn't even drink during this period of my life. So it's like, yeah, that's a good idea, because I would be dead, I think, if I drank again, especially when I was going through that. But it changed the way I viewed things, and it changed the way I viewed comedy. It changed the way I viewed photographs and paintings and looking at the leaves and the trees, and even during the most difficult, painful periods of my life, I saw a beauty in those things that were painful, that you can't see so easily unless you strip away everything that you aren't. You get down to bare metal, and I still liked good music, and colors. They even looked different. It's almost like an LSD without the LSD trip, because everything changed so dramatically from going through that kind of a grief. But I wonder if it would even be possible for you to come up with a routine that would address that. And I bet you if you could, because if you did that memorial, you see, this is something that hadn't occurred to me until you mentioned the memorial. Do you have any thoughts on that general idea?
Well, yeah, I've had people reach out to me a lot about dealing with grief, about dealing with losing a loved one, and I did a couple videos about dealing with death, because I've certainly, my grandfather died when I was young. My dad died when I was 28. He was only 54 at the time. And then I had a son who died when he was 10 days old. And the thing I got from all that is that, that pain is always going to be there. It doesn't ever go away. The grief never goes away. But how we deal with it and how we manage it is really the secret to it. And the thing I do when I think about my father, I think about my son, my grandfather, my grandmother, these people who I've lost over the years, who I love. When I think about them, I think about the positive things. I think about the joy that I had, and I remember the good things from them. And some would even say maybe I glamorize them too much, but you know what? It's my way of honoring them. I love them. I still feel that they're there. I still feel that one day I'll be reunited with them. And it's that hope that I just carry with me. They don't want me to be miserable every time I think of them. Nobody you don't want people where every time they think of you to be filled with grief and misery. If every time you think about them, it puts a smile on your face and it makes you feel good, just to remember, just their memory is a way to stay connected to them, by being happy about having had them in your life. And it changes the grieving process, because now instead of you're grieving because you've lost someone, what you should do is be celebrating that you ever got to know them at all, and that they're still there with you. They're still those great memories, and holding on to those things and remembering those things, and knowing that that person wants you to be happy and wants you to move on. And so many people just feel like they have to stop their lives, and because if they experience any kind of joy and happiness from that point on, that somehow they're diminishing the memory of their loved one. They're, especially when it's a spouse, they feel like they can't have joy anymore, and that's silly. They want you to be happy, and they see a picture of the world that you haven't received yet, and they would tell you, be happy, enjoy the experience while you're still there, enjoy every moment of it. And that's how you honor the people who've moved on from you, is you honor their memory by being happy. That's all it really comes down to.
Perfect. Yeah, it's grief is praise. You can't grieve something you don't love. So grief is proof of praise, and I suspect we'll go through it in our own way and in our own timing. And I do agree, having been working with people, you know, in MAD for so long. I've met tons of people in grief. And I was at the 2018 police and volunteer recognition event for MAD. That was the last year I spoke for them. And I speak for other groups now. But there was a fellow who lost his wife, and he was grieving on stage. He was our keynote speaker at the end of this thing. And while he was speaking, I know this is probably not going to sound believable to some people, but whatever, it's what I saw. It's like there was an opening or a portal or something opened in heaven, like the veil had disappeared over his right hand shoulder, and there was this big opening, and his wife was there with the sunlight of the spirit flowing through her hair, and she was absolutely 100% just filled with joy and love, and she loved him, you know, and he kept on grieving and talking and giving a speech, and he had no clue she was right there. And probably a part of his soul might have felt that. I don't know. You know, he might have laid back later and went, man, I could feel her there, you know? And so I think you're right, is that they're waiting for us, and we have no clue for the most part just how good it really is. We get little glimpses like I got that day, you know?
Yeah.
And when I had cancer, I had to decide if I was going to live or die, and I was really questioning myself about that. And at one point, I felt like I was in between worlds, and I could see these two people that were just like just white personages or something, just shining white, and there's a couple miles away over a gulf. And I sensed that I knew them, but I couldn't tell who they were. So it's like, I know those two people that are waiting for me. And but I had decided that my mission wasn't done here yet, you know. So here I am still, and so now I just figure any bad joke I tell, they can take it up with God, because God's the reason I'm still alive, you know. And hey, I got a comedian to laugh. Woohoo! So if you had your way to share anything you'd want to share, because I've been kind of taking this down this heavy sort of a road here, because I'm maybe being too heavy. I don't know, but you never know. Somebody might see the video and go, "That's just what I needed to hear today."
Yeah.
But maybe we can lighten it up a bit here. And how about if I just let you take over here, and you just go with anything that you want to go with for 10 minutes or something, you know? You're a philosopher, man. You really are, you know? And that means you don't mind being poor. I know what that means.
Yes. As I like to say, I'm a comedian and a philosopher, so I have two ways of not making money.
Right. I'm going to mute myself and let you go.
Okay. Well, you know, it's so easy to get overwhelmed with the world and how just insane it is, and we keep thinking like we've been told that there's this message that we're supposed to find. There's something that we're supposed to discover, and we're going to put it all together, and we're going to check off all these things, and we're going to please God, and God's going to give us all these mansions in the sky, and blah blah blah. And really, the message that God has been saying the whole time is that you are a part of me. We're all children of God. And when you finally comprehend that, you realize that you aren't lacking in anything. You are full of love. You are full of compassion. You are full of patience. You have all of these things. We keep thinking that we've got to go out and seek them and find them, when in reality, we already have them. We already have all the gifts that you want, everything you want that you think you need to have. You already have all those gifts. It's already there within you. You just have to accept them and focus on those things, and focus on just being happy. We've been given this glorious gift of life, for crying out loud. Whether you believe in a God or you think it's just a big series of happy accidents, regardless, we've been given an amazing gift of free agency to basically create whatever it is that you want with your life. You can do it. You could become amazing and do amazing things, or you can be a horrible, rotten, terrible, miserable person. It does, and it's up to you. It's entire 100% completely up to you what you decide you want to do with your life. If you want to find purpose and meaning, the purpose and meaning of life, it's very simple, is for you to find a purpose and meaning of your life. That is it. We aren't here to please a big list of deities and their demands. God's only demand was love me and love everyone else. How much more can you get? How much more? That's it. That's it. Love, you've got free agency. Do something great with your life. Have fun. Love everybody. Try not to hurt people. But again, we do that. And that's probably the biggest problem, is that we do bad things. We do hurt those that we care about. We do get focused on the wrong things. But don't let that destroy you. Don't let that pull you down and make yourself miserable. Forgive yourself. That's probably the biggest thing, is when you forgive and you let go of that anger and that rage against others who have hurt you, or just forgive yourself. It's an amazing and it's a beautiful thing. It's a very freeing, lovely, lovely thing. Life is absolutely wonderful, even though it may not seem like it when you're constantly being hounded by bill collectors, or you don't have enough money to do all the things you want to do, or you want to change all the world's problems, but you keep thinking, well, I need to be rich to be able to do that, or all these weird ideas about money, when it doesn't matter. You can find joy, love, peace, happiness in the simplest things. Just, you don't need to change the world. Just go out and just be nice to people. For one moment, if you can change a person's attitude and change a person's life for 1 second, if you can get them to stop feeling lonely and feeling full of grief, because if you're experiencing it, trust me, other people are experiencing it. And when you can see it, and you just go and do something nice to them, if you can change their attitude for 1 moment, you could change their whole day. And if you can change their whole day, you can change their life with something simple. And that's it. You don't need to do grand things. You don't need to start international organizations to stop hunger. You don't need to do all those things. Those are great. Those are all wonderful things. But you yourself, you can just go walk. Do you have a neighbor you've never met? You probably do. You probably have people you live right next to. Literally, they're 15 feet away from you, spend their entire lives just right next door, and you don't know who they are. Walk next door and just say hello. You're my neighbor. I want to get to know you. It'll change your life. You might find out they're a jerk, which is fine. That doesn't matter. Just open up your heart to the world and just go out and be nice to people. Who knows? Maybe they're going to have a barbecue one day and invite you over. And it's going to be a glorious experience. And then you meet other people. It's just an amazing thing. We have all of these gifts. This whole world is just this huge, big gift. And we spend half of our time worrying about things that happened in the past that have no bearing on you at all anymore, or worrying about the future, when right now we're sitting right in the middle of this whole thing, and it's going on right now, and you're here. People talk about wanting to go back in time. I want to travel back in time and go see these major historical events. Well, guess what? You're living in a freaking historical event right now. Enjoy it. Enjoy the gift. Enjoy life. Enjoy it. Just get out there and live and have a good, wonderful time. That's my message.
Sounds like you're visiting from the future in the present that we are living in with a message.
I've been accused of that. I can neither confirm nor deny the sentiment.
Well, I somewhere along the line, I realize I'm probably too dumb to stay unhappy for very long. And I sometimes think that it's really the smart people that just can't get over thinking. They think themselves into their own self-imposed prison, and the monkey mind just traps them there, you know. And until we get simple about it, you know. I mean, I saw that you were kind of a little bit of a Kantian. Did I misread that?
Yes,
You know, it's like
yes, yes.
how do you, I mean, Kant had an awful upbringing, you know, and but yet you studied his philosophies, and how do you put comedy and Kant together? How does that
Well,
work?
I really think of Kant was just a really great comedian that didn't have anywhere to perform. Him and Nietzsche, I think, are the two of the funniest philosophers. Um, because of their just downright brilliant observations and their pure honesty, you know. Didn't always agree with what they had to say, but I just love what what they did say something, that they had the goal and and just the pure state of mind to just put it out there. I mean, think about the tenacity to sit there and write, spend your entire life and dedicate it to just philosophy. And you're literally saying to the world, I'm smarter than all of you, and here's what you need to know. So that's pretty tenacious. But no, I love the message of a lot of Nietzsche and Kant is that, you know, like I said, a lot of our decisions are our decisions. And when we we try to make life more complicated than it is. It's like if it's difficult and it's mysterious and we can't understand it, then we absolve ourselves of any responsibility. You know, it's like the big secrets are for those very intelligent and connected people. It's like, that's all nonsense. It's all complete nonsense. We're all capable of doing amazing things. We just got to let ourselves do it. And that's the thing I love about philosophy, is that it really is, you scrape away all the dogma of religion. I think the stuff that we've added to religion to make it more mysterious, make it more difficult to understand, in reality, it's very simple. It's always been very simple. And it's just sitting there. It's just sitting there. Life is just sitting there waiting for you to do something with it.
You know what I think would be, I'm sure you hear just hundreds of ideas like this, but you know, as you were talking, I was going, what would Rodney look like? Kant, Nietzsche, talking to each other in the mode, you know, and talking about today's world issues or something, you know, and I think that would be interesting. Maybe
that would be. Well,
yeah.
I've often wanted to go through and put together a one-man show of Nietzsche doing stand-up.
If I could travel and go to see that show, I would love to. I hope that you can get into Minnesota someday. And we do visit about once a year out in St. George. So if you're playing out there sometime, anywhere in Utah, then we could probably just say, look, I'm going,
yeah.
you guys you can go do what you're going to do. If you have a show going on at that time, I'll be there. And I won't heckle or anything. I'll just laugh.
Oh, awesome. I love St. George. Yeah, I've performed there a few times. Love that place. What do you go out there for? What is it, a conference for MAD or
No, my
else?
girlfriend's parents live there.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, her dad, not he remarried. You know, her mom passed, and he Patricia is my girlfriend, and her dad moved out to live with Merrill, and her dad is Lutheran. Merrill is LDS, and she was like in the Relief Society, and she's had some health problems. She was leading the Relief Society out there, so she can't really keep doing that. But she's LDS, and it's kind of an interesting combination, you know.
Yeah.
Very, very nice woman. very intelligent. Just kind of got a little bit of a sense of a dry look at life, a little more dry than what I'm used to. But you know, that she doesn't need the lubrication that I went through to get to where I'm at. She can do without that. So, you know,
Yeah. That's as I like to say, uh, poor behavior and bad decisions are natural. I don't need drugs or alcohol.
amen. Yeah, if I would have known how happy I could be without it, I would have never did it in the first place, you know. And I remember back in the days smoking weed and drinking and feeling like it was a spiritual experience. Nothing could possibly be better than that. And then after I was sober for about 15 years, I started experiencing um, an amazing sense of joy that smoking and the drinking didn't even, I didn't know I could access this without that, you know. And had I known, I'd have never bothered in the first place. But you don't know, you don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you maybe had a decent upbringing, regardless of some of the effects that, you know, some of the things you experienced.
Well, you know, it was my grandfather was an alcoholic, but nobody else was because I think his, you know, knowing that we were in a family that had addictive personalities, most of us stayed away from it. You know, in fact, one day my grandfather, I was about, I think about 9 or 10 years old. I was getting ready. I was, you know, headed out to the backyard, and to go to the backyard, you had to stop at Grandpa, and he would always say something to you, or try to tickle you, or give you a little, you know, a little pinch or something. He always had to do something. And so one time he stopped me and he looked at me and he goes, "Rodney, you know why I smoke a drink?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know, Grandpa." And he says, "Because I'm an idiot. And if I ever find out you're smoking or drinking, I'll come back here and haunt you in your dreams. Now get out of here."
Wow, that's some serious wisdom.
Yeah, and you know, from that, I mean, not that I really had any desire anyway, but that just solidified in my mind that I would just never touch the stuff. Yeah, because it was his way of telling me this isn't the path to happiness, and I learned that very quickly, and it was from him. And just seeing that, you know, he was miserable when he would get drunk. He would get angry drunk. When he got too drunk, we'd have to leave because he started getting mean and violent. And that's one thing that always instilled in me, is that alcohol destroyed my grandfather. Alcohol is what took the loving, kind, funny. The man was hilarious and just so full of just love. But the alcohol took that away. It destroyed him. It something else was in possession of my grandfather's body when he was that drunk. And I saw that and recognized that early. But my parents, you know, no alcohol or anything in my family. We were just, I had great parents. We didn't have a lot of money with 6 kids. My dad was a diesel mechanic. We moved around a lot. We were into race cars, and if you're into race cars, you know race cars take all the money. So it was a poor background. I mean, we didn't have a whole lot. You know, I got, at any point in time growing up, I had maybe 2 or 3 pairs of shoes. I'd get the beginning of school. Mom would buy me 4 shorts, or four shirts and 1 pair of Levi's, and that would last me until Christmas. And then I got another pair of pants and 4 more shirts. You know, that was my life. We just didn't have a lot of money, and so we just made do with what we could. And when I started making my own money, you know, I'd go and buy clothes at Goodwill. I hardly ever bought anything new. I bought, you know, cheap. And but I never felt like we were poor. I knew we were poor, but I didn't ever felt like we were poor. You know, because I loved my family. We enjoyed life, and life is what you decide it is. Yeah, if you're poor and you're miserable, well, there's a lot of rich people who are miserable too. I hung out with a lot of rich people in high school, and because we were in that situation, you know, when they did the whole busing thing. So they would bring people from the poor side of town to the rich side of town and go to school. That was my situation, was they were bringing us to the rich high school. And so I hung around with a lot of rich people who were miserable. You know, you know, when you have money and you think that's the solution to everything, and then you find out it isn't. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one they swallow a lot, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Well, Solomon was rich and wise. It's a little bit rare.
Yeah, when you can find a rich person with money, you know, I've always said money makes you more of who you are.
Mm.
If you're a miserable, rotten person and you have a lot of money, you're just a miserable, rotten person with a lot of money. But if you're a good person and you have a strong real desire, money allows you to do great things. You see it all the time. You see people who you know, instead of taking the money and aggrandizing themselves, they use it to help others, and it's amazing.
Almost all of my speaking career has been free speeches, and since my cancer, though, I had to start changing a little bit, try to get some income through speaking or maybe even writing. We'll see where it all goes, but I'm just trusting, you know, the universe right now. But it's like, you know, I was so glad to be able to try and get a message out there. And I don't know if you saw the guilt-shaped hole little thing, but there was last night I spoke to some DWI offenders at a treatment center. And I just wanted to point out to them that I'm not into filling guilt-shaped holes in people's lives where you can just stuff enough shame and guilt in there that they'll never do again what got them there in the first place. And I just don't think that works. You know, I think if you love someone, you won't hurt them. And if you love yourself, you won't place yourself in harm's way. And, you know, I know this sounds religious, but love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and others as yourself. And everything else will just get added to that, you know. Now, you know, someone might not believe in God. You were pointing that out earlier. You know, anyone can love, anyone can forgive. It's not. I think there's just no ownership as to who gets to love or not. You know, just no one can capitalize on it and say we've got it and no one else does. Yeah. And you know, that's just my perspective. But the starting point for me is always that love thing. You know. And just like, do you feel ashamed that you got a DWI? Well, get rid of that. Replace that with love and gratitude. Like you had this happen, and it's just a wonderful opportunity for spiritual growth, where you can take your life and move it in another direction. It's like we had a divine appointment, right? And, you know, I see your ministry, again, I'm going to call it that. You know, you have a divine appointment with people while you're on stage. And they may or may not view it that way, but that's my paradigm in life. I see everything through that lens, so that's how I'm going to see it. But you just never know. There could be one person who's really struggling, and because you're open to the spirit of love and that gentleness, you know, you can be used, and that might bring out exactly the right words and exactly the right joke to exactly the right person at exactly the right time. And they might go, oh, that was perfect for where I'm at right now. And you give them a break, even if, you know, sometimes you just need to, you know, crack the door open a little bit, you know, and then the light will shine through. You know, I just, I don't know. I just love what you're doing, and I love what you're bringing to the stage and to the world. And you know, I can just tell by looking in your eyes. If you guys, if you're looking at this video and you look into Rodney's eyes, you can see how gentle he really is. I mean, the eyes don't lie. The eyes are truly the windows to the soul. Nobody's perfect. We all have shortcomings, and you know, I've got I've got the self-saboteur that still comes and bothers me from time to time, you know, but it's like, well, thanks for showing up, but I don't need you anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And, but if we can just feel that gentleness within our, you know, the bottom of who we are, that's the way to start the day, man. You know, what do you do when you start your day? What does your morning look like when you first wake up? Maybe your feet hit the floor, your eyes open, and you look at the ceiling, whatever that is. You know, what does that look like for you?
The first thought I try to have every morning is, wow, I get to do it again. Thank you, God. I have another day. That really is, when you start your day off with gratitude, it's hard to be upset. When you wake up, you go, wow, I have a roof over my head. I have food. I don't have to, I'm not concerned about where my next meal's coming from. I've got clean water. For crying out loud, I have a hole that I can go and pee in, and it takes the pee and poop away from the house. What a glorious gift that is. Holy cow, we should appreciate it. You ever go camping, you have to dig a hole, put it in?
Yeah.
No, that, to me, that's why I try to start every day off with just a simple, wow, this is amazing. Here I am, I get to do it again. And I love it. Yeah, you had talked about, you know, perfection. I think that's one of the reasons my videos connect with people, is that I'm not trying to be perfect. You know, that I really, my goal is to do everything wrong. You know, they say you got to have a strong hook right at the beginning of your video. You got to look perfect. You got to have the best background. You have all these things that they say you got to have, you know, all this stuff. And I thought, I'm going to do it all wrong. I'm going to start the videos off slow and awkward. They're weird. Most people don't watch them. In fact, I've had many people have said, every time I see your video, I click past it and then I keep seeing them and I'm like, what is this? Why do people watch this guy? And then once they watch a video, they go, oh, I get it. You know, you know what? I screw up in the middle of the video. I just keep going. You know, if I cough, whatever. I turn it on, or very seldom do I ever stop and redo it.
Yeah, and I've noticed that too. As a speaker, you know, I make a lot of mistakes. Most of the time, people don't know I've made the mistake. That you just keep on going. You know, as a speaker, I kind of recognize that, oh, there's a little blip there. Oh, here's a little blip there. It's like, oh yeah, you had planned to do something, and then you remembered at the last to do it, and then you did it. I noticed something like that, and I love that you don't edit that stuff out. Just, it's cool. It's part of. I like the realness of it. You know, it's like, oh yeah, this is what I was gonna do, and then you do it. So I would concur with you as a person that has watched the videos and noticed the so-called imperfections, you know, but real is the real perfect, you know. It's like strength through vulnerability. My defenselessness is my strength, if you will. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that before, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just fun. You know, like I said, life is so simple and we try to make it so complicated. There's really no reason to. Just know that when you're whatever you're going through, it'll pass. You know, you just open yourself to new possibilities, new opportunities, and just let it happen.
Do you like plants?
Do I like plants?
Yes.
Yes, I love
Legal
plants.
ones.
As in, I have nice ferns.
Ferns, trees, just whatever. It's just, I wanted a dumb question that I just throw out there randomly. Do you like plants? Who asks anyone?
I do. You know, I'll be honest with you. If I was better at actually watering the plants, I would probably have more plants around. Because I love having greenage in the house, and yeah, I love plants. My ideal place would be, you know, where there's lots of trees. That's part of what drew me to going to Connecticut. was just, there's just so much green everywhere. I grew up in Utah, so it's always, it's dry. I mean, we got trees, but you have to go visit them. You know what I mean? You have to really work to keep a tree alive in Utah. Not in Connecticut, they're everywhere, and I love it. But most of the videos I've done were, filmed in Connecticut. The green, usually when I'm in front of the little pond or trees, it's usually my backyard. I have an idea for a video, I just run in my backyard and film it. So.
Yeah, it's pretty out there. Back in my drinking days, I'd have cactus that would die of thirst. So, so now I get to celebrate, and I'm fairly good at watering my plants, but I'm really glad it's summer now because I took them all out of this office that we're in right now. You can't really see it because of the green screen, but and I just had the place full of plants during the winter, and it's a lot of fun for me.
Natural air purifiers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it cleans it up. And well, I think we're getting pretty close to the wrap-up time here. If someone wanted to come and check out your work, what website would you send them to?
Well, all you got to remember is Rodney Norman. I happen to be the most famous Rodney Norman that has ever existed. So you won't have any. Whatever search engine you use, I usually pop up first.
Okay.
So rodneynorman.com. I'm on all the social media stuff. So anywhere I can get attention, I'm usually there.
Okay, and of course I'll put your links in the credits and the like too. So with a sentence or two of wisdom, what should we leave the people with?
You're not that special. Life is painful, and it's beautiful, and love it. Get out there and just live your life, for crying out loud, people. Quit stopping yourself from being happy. Just be happy.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I so appreciate your time, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining another episode of The Incomplete Skeptic. Drop the skepticism. Peace out, brother. Thanks again.
We'll see ya.
All right.